accused JPMorgan Chase of closing accounts and discriminating against customers because of their political or religious beliefs, the report says.
Conservatives and religious groups have seen their bank accounts shuttered. They've seen them shut down. I want to play a clip from FRC's Pray Vote Stand Summit from last year when the former ambassador for international religious freedom, Sam Brownback, shared his personal experience with the cancel culture and Chase Bank. Listen to this.
We have money in the bank account and we were fired by our bank as their customer. Why? What did we do? Well, we won't tell you. The decision was made at corporate level, and then after pushing them for a while, they said, well, if you will disclose who you're going to back and what your criteria are for candidates you're back, then we will consider reestablishing your account. And we said, okay, that's what's happening in America today. And
it appears this is not just a one-hit scenario. This type of thing is occurring with more frequency, correct?
It sure appears that way. I happen to think that there's a very good chance it isn't coming from the very top, from Park Avenue, if you will, where their C-suite is located. I think it's very possible that they just have a total breakdown of controls down to a regional level, and the company is so large and complex that they've lost the ability to regulate if there's political and religious discrimination like this taking place. And that's the thing that's very important about my resolution, is I did not come to them and say, we want you to admit you're doing it. And I did not come and say, we want you to start discriminating against other religions or discriminating against the left. Well, all I said is we'd like you to run an investigation internally and report back to us, the shareholders, the owners of the business, as to whether or not you found that this is happening. And if it isn't, then great. Everyone's going to be really happy to know it's not. And if you find out that it is, we can start to remedy it. And so I think that their opposition to me putting that on the docket is really what created this hubbub and forced the SEC to get involved and say, no, JP Morgan, you will hear out this resolution.
I would think that a bank that I've had a relationship with for 15 years would be like the best person to do business with.
This is Enrique Tarrio, chairman of the Proud Boys and an entrepreneur who runs a controversial website called 1776.shop. He sells conservative merchandise, some of which is quite offensive. Nevertheless, if obscene words on t-shirts cause people to lose their bank accounts, Chase should be honest about it.
They go through a certification process. It took 3 months to do. I told them what my business was about, which was an online store selling t-shirts, hats, coins, processed with them without a problem for almost 2 months. I found a letter in my mail saying that the Chase Bank was going to close my account. Called both Chase Payment Tech and Chase Bank. Both operators gave me exactly the same thing. I've never seen this before. I actually can't tell you why.
Yeah, so we have an alert that says accounts being closed by compliance. Position is not reversible.
Are we clear about account closure?
Should be directed to
the executive office.
That's why I came here hoping to find more information, but there is nothing that we can tell the client. So now, can you speak with the client, or do you speak with the clients, or no? No, you don't speak to clients. No, they don't speak.
Yeah, they don't have anything. They won't discuss it, I guess.
It's mind-boggling. I see nothing that indicates any reason why the account should be closed.
Enrique was at one bank. The woman's like, yeah, no, it's fine. And then I think she sort of saw one screen and went, whoa, and got weird.
Patriot extremism. The document defines patriot extremism as this ideology holds that the U.S. government has become corrupt, has overstepped its constitutional boundaries, or is no longer capable of protecting the people against foreign threats. Wait, so thinking the U.S. government is corrupt, has overstepped its constitutional boundaries, and can't defeat foreign threats makes you an extremist? Those views are mainstream conservative thinking today.
Patriot extremism
they take a bunch of extremist symbols, and then in it, they put like shit that like every military person would have. With the picture of the gun, like the Second Amendment advocates, it says come and take it. That's an extremist view now. Challenging someone to come take your constitutional rights. That's an extremist view now.
Hello and welcome to another Wednesday Night Live, folks. So I wanted to get into this topic of JP Morgan Chase shutting down accounts of what seemingly is JP Morgan Chase shutting down accounts of conservatives and other types of political opinions in general, religious organizations, anything that doesn't seem to be into the woke mantra, right? And while it's not fully evidenced at this point, the SEC has actually insisted that a resolution be heard. It was from David Benson, who's the chief investment officer of the Benson Group, which manages it's an investment firm similar to those of BlackRock and things like that. Obviously, much smaller, but they do invest billions of dollars of different investors' money. And as a stakeholder in JP Morgan, and that was the gentleman that I put in that intro clip, as a stakeholder, he's putting forth a resolution to try and get to the bottom of this because he's looked into it himself and has found that there is at least smoke. And the way he explained it was that, he's, according to him, at least at this moment, and he does make it clear, at least for now, he says, it appears what he thinks it is that JP Morgan has lost control of its regional offices, and that these are decisions that are getting made by woke regional directors and things like that, as opposed to something that's coming from the very top down. And we'll see if that's true or not. And that's why he wants to put this resolution. Now, JP Morgan seems to be the one that keeps coming up in this conversation. It doesn't seem to be something now, whether or not other banks are doing it, I don't know, but I know that my brother flipped me a video of someone talking about this, and they were just reading from a Business Insider article. And since Business Insider is a wackadoo leftist rag, I decided to look into it a little bit more myself, which is where I realized, like, oh my gosh, all right, so they did this, 4 or 5 years ago. They did it to the Proud Boys. They did it to this other religious organization. There are other people talking about it. I'm like, what's going on here? And so I just thought I would bring it to light, for people to understand. Now, later in the episode, I'm going to get into, as I mentioned, for those of you who are coming off of my last video on the ATF and the visits they were doing to seize people's FRT trigger mechanisms and the firearms therein. I'm going to touch on that a little bit afterwards as well. I'm also going to touch a little bit on the Durahm report. But before I get going on this, just make sure you smack that subscribe button, follow button, whatever platform you're watching on. We're streaming on Rumble, YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. So, and when you click the follow, please make sure you go one step further and click the get all notifications, because if you don't, you will not get any. I'm fine if you feel like you're getting too many notifications. I'm not that guy that comes up 3-4 times a day just pushing content out there for the sake of it. I got Wednesday Night Live, and there's usually one other video. So definitely it would help me a lot. Smash the like button. Give me some comments as to where you're from, where you're watching this from, especially my international folks. Love to hear my peeps in Australia, UK, New Zealand, and other nations where they're going through a lot of the same drama that we're going through here in the States. But to get back to this Chase issue, so here I'm going to give you a clip. I played this in the intro, but it was early on, so maybe a lot of people didn't see it. This is Sam Brownback. He's a former ambassador for the International Religious Freedom Group, and he was giving a speech at one of their conventions. This was last year. Okay, so this is not even in the immediate, and this was still going on. But listen to what he tells everybody about his experience in dealing with JP Morgan Chase.
We have money in the bank account, and we were fired by our bank as their customer. Why? What did we do? Well, we won't tell you. The decision was made at corporate level, and then after pushing them for a while, they said, well, if you will disclose who you're going to back and what your criteria are for candidates you're back, then we will consider reestablishing your account. And we said, okay, that's what's happening in America today.
right? So they basically shut his account down and were like, you need to tell us who you're voting for. You need to tell us what your political stances are. Like, none of this has any relevance in anything. But I'm going to explain to you why. The New York Times actually did a piece on this, trying to be apologetic about it, of course, because it's the New York Times, and explaining why it's necessary to have this happen. And in that piece, as often happens in these leftist rags, is that they end up explaining exactly why it should not be happening and how unconstitutional it actually is. So let me see if I can pull that up here. And then, Danny, how are you, sir, over on Facebook? Good to see you on. Pleasure to see you. And for those, I apologize about the last live episode, folks. It was a disaster job trying new software. I'm back on my old stuff so it's not as capable, but it's much more fluid and less issues. So where is it? All right, so here's the Times piece. I clipped this out. So they phrased it as a delicate balance. So here's how it works, folks. Individual finance institutions must answer to a bureau of the Treasury Department, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. All right, so this is a thing. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Its job is to safeguard the financial system against criminal activity, including money laundering and terrorism financing. Now, I'm going to get into how freaking amazingly unconstitutional this is in just a minute, but just this whole process in the first place. And so it's its basic mission: follow the money, and the banks play a central role in collecting that data. Banks can close a customer's account for any reason, any time. A point that is buried in the fine print of its customers' agreements. When they do dump an account, it's usually because they're trying to protect the institution or the customer from a potential fraud. Well, that's not necessarily true. Okay, that's not necessarily true. What they're doing is, as they themselves explained earlier in that same paragraph, is they're complying, right? So, like, each time, we hear something like this, and the first thing that hits our mind is, screw JP Morgan Chase, screw this Diamond guy, the CEO, screw them, blah, blah, blah. Why are they doing this? But what we never stop to think about it is why they're doing it, right? And it's no different than the Bud Light situation, which I was trying to tell everyone. This is not a transgender issue, although the transgender issue is enough considering the damage it does to children. But that's not why Bud Light did it. Bud Light could care less about transgender people. They could care less about Dylan Mulvaney. Chase could care less about these people in these accounts. They don't care. Why they're doing it is because they have to do it. They have to remain in compliance. And the real crime here is not Chase shutting down an account. The real crime here is that organization. What was the name of it? I never heard of it before, so maybe it's my own ignorance, but I had never heard of it before. The bureau. It's a bureau. It's a bureau of the Treasury Department, the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Yes. So as we get our convention of states going, and we start looking at the government overreach standpoint, here's one organization that goes right in the trash can. Right? The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, gone. See you later. All right. You've already violated the Constitution in multiple ways. And the fact is, what this is an example of, okay, they're making banks flag transactions and here's where it gets wrong, okay, is that the transactions they end up flagging because they're afraid that if they don't flag one, and because that's the thing, if they don't flag one and this agency finds an issue, they punish the hell out of the bank. They'll punish the hell out of it. So what does the bank do? It just starts closing anything that's remotely even anything. And here's the twist. And there's a study done on this, okay, in 2018 as to how many of these accounts that get flagged and shut down, for one, most of them get reinstated. Why? Because they're not doing anything shady. But the fact is the overwhelming majority of them end up being conservative accounts, religious groups, things of that nature. And on top of that, of all the accounts, there's only like 4% that have anything even suspicious, not even illegal, anything even suspicious. So 96% of the accounts that they flag and submit for inspection to this agency, 98%, right, are what is it? Most of the time, customers are probably innocent. A 2018 study, and folks, you see the study is a link. I have that link, so you can go read the study yourself in the Rumble description. So a 2008 study from the Bank Policy Institute found that a median of just 4% of 640,000 suspicious activity reports from a sample of large banks warranted a follow-up from law enforcement, according to the research, which examined 16 million alerts. 16 million times banking institutions flagged law-abiding citizens with absolutely no evidence just to cover their ass. That is the same thing as DUI and as DUI checkpoints. Okay, and for those of you who don't know, they're incredibly unconstitutional. They require you to volunteer. They require it. But that's exactly what this is. They're fishing they're basically digging into records. You can't get someone's banking records without a warrant. Period. You cannot get someone's banking records without a warrant. However, 16 million times, only 4% of which were even warranted a follow-up. Forget, not if we get down to who is actually guilty, it's probably 1%. But 16 million times they violated the Constitution for a government agency. They have it doesn't matter if a transaction seems to be kind of sort of suspicious. If you don't have evidence that someone's committing a crime, you cannot go and dig in through their bank records. You just can't do it. It is illegal. It is unconstitutional. But yet here they are, and they're doing it. And they did it 16 million times. This is a big problem, all right? And it's way bigger than JP Morgan Chase. That institution needs to be shut down altogether. And that the government institution, I'm saying. Simplatil over in Facebook. JP Morgan Chase should be investigated. Yeah, and so here's the thing, right? So what was his name, that guy? Banson. So David Banson, who's the chief investment officer over at Banson Group, which manages about multiple billions of investors' money in the Banson Group, he is now bringing a resolution to the board meeting. And here's the kicker, right? And this is what I put the clip from him in the intro. Was he submitted this? He didn't submit it. He submitted it to be an item on the agenda, and he didn't submit it saying, this is ridiculous, this is disgusting. Well, he just said, hey, this could be a problem. We've looked into this. We're concerned. People who you're accountable to, the investors, the owners of the company. They have a lot of money invested in JP Morgan Chase, and he came through and tried to get this resolution through, and they rejected it. Now, just to give you the idea of how legitimate that resolution was, the SEC forced it onto the docket. So they will be hearing it, okay? Don't ask me, what righteous-minded person got wind of this in the SEC, because there aren't many. But this person, whoever it was, saw this and said, no, you will, JP Morgan, you will hear this resolution. And frankly, if JP Morgan wants to put this fire out, they're going to investigate it. If David Banson is right, and this is just a matter, and I think it's highly probable that he is right, that this is not something where like Diamond came down, the CEO's name is Diamond, that he came down and said, let's start shutting down conservative accounts. Like, I absolutely think this is a more local situation where some ESG hires just happen to be in there, kind of like this marketing director for Bud Light, and just made some really stupid decisions. And now it's like the cumulative effect of them are now starting to show. And if JP Morgan doesn't get a hold on this and they allow something like this to continue, this could blow up on them incredibly badly, because these ain't cans of Bud Light. If people start pulling money out of JP Morgan, it's going to get ugly. It's going to get ugly. Like that is not a scenario we want to see. In the end, they need to cut it off right now before it becomes a bigger problem. Find out, get to the bottom of it, fire whoever needs to get fired. But that needs to happen, and needs to happen quickly. And that agency, this whole thing needs to get addressed by convention of states. This entire process of them just forcing banks to hand over people's personal bank records and transactions because someone at Chase has to decide whether or not it's a fishy transaction. These are not even law professionals who are doing this. These are not even law professionals who are doing this. So you got some banker going through your transactions and telling you what you can and can't free. Oh, this looks shady. Let me send this to this creepy government agency so they can review this guy's bank account. It's so illegal, it's ridiculous. The New York Times talks about it like, well, we've got to protect you. No, you don't have to protect me. What I need to be protected from is that creepy agency. What the hell was the name of that agency again? The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. I got to write that down. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. That's who I need protection from. I don't need protection from these doo-doos, from somebody else trying to. What are they trying to do to my account? Who's getting protected here? Even if it is a white-collar crime, who's getting protected? Going through 16 million people's legitimate transactions, hoping to find one that's shady. That is so illegal. So I just got a thing here saying that the sound is not in line, not jiving with my mouth here. Let me see. Turn on the volume on the. All right. So first of all, we're going to lower. That sounded a little bit too loud. So we'll lower that. And give me 1 sec, folks. I'm going to. All right. So I hope that helped. And we'll see. Let me know what you think as far as the audio is coming back. I don't know what's going on with the software these days. I have been battling the software like a maniac, and it has not been a fun ride. So the sound should be better. All right, so that was the same one. And then we got Mike Arnold says, hey, Mike, how are you, sir? Over on Facebook. Don't worry, George. They already have the solution in queue. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. The solution's coming, folks. And if you haven't signed a petition yet, that's what you need to be doing. That's got to be your next step. You can go to our website, www.thepatriotthinktank.com/COS. You will find a link straight to the petition on the Convention of States site, as well as options to volunteer, get into and utilize the Cause University, which is also really cool. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to try and. Okay, so anyway, but you can get in there, get yourself signed up for the petition, get yourself set up with Cause University. Click the volunteer button. Let's get active, folks. This is all local, right? To fight all of this stuff is local. There's none of this. It's not the Trump election doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but not in the sense of saving the nation. Trump could be elected president, and the nation still lost. That's 100% possible. 100%. Matter of fact. It will happen if we don't call this Convention of States. You will watch Trump come in, all good-hearted and good intentioned in the whole nine. But in the end, the presidency doesn't have the power to fix what we need to fix. Agencies like these creepy agencies who are going through our bank accounts looking for someone who's a criminal when they have no evidence of anybody committing any crime, that kind of stuff is the stuff that's dragging us down. That's the kind of stuff that needs to end. That's it. All right? Fiscal restraints, term limits, they're all in there. They're all in there. Let's get this done. Enough is enough. Enough with the scared, the deep state's going to take it over. They're going to, stop. You cannot live your entire life afraid of the deep state. Understand the deep state are a bunch of freaking imbeciles with technology. And even with all that technology, they still can't stop a 25-year-old kid from leaking tons of what they consider to be super sensitive information. Even with all that tech, even with all an unlimited bank budget, all this tech, years of experience doing this creepy stuff, and they still can't stop a 25-year-old kid from leaking stuff out. This is not an organization to be feared, folks. It's not. They can't suicide everyone. In the end, if these conventions get called, there are far too many state legislatures and too many state legislators to try and take out or bribe. Someone's going to crack and sell them out. You can't do it that way. And in the end, if we don't do this, if we decide we're going to be afraid and we're going to continue to live in fear and we don't do it, it's over anyway. It's over anyway. There's nothing. There will be nothing left to fight for. Okay, there will be nothing left to fight for. The Marxists are coming. They're not even coming. They've arrived, and they've already won. They've already won the first war. This is a retaliatory strike. This is us delivering our first meaningful, like undeniably meaningful blow to big government, to the deep state, in resurrecting our dollar, in getting term limits on these individuals, not just the elected, but deep state too. So that creepy guy who's not the director, but just under him, who never leaves, as director after director get appointed as the president's change, this creepy guy has always been in place. He's the one who grabs each director as they come in and shows them how to operate in Creepy Town. That guy will not be allowed to stay in position. That's more important even than getting rid of the Pelosi's. Like, we have to start looking at the power of this because it is that big of a deal. It is that big of a deal. And let me just, so now that we've established that Chase is doing this, and we've established that they're being forced to by the government, and they're quoted as saying it's only for, extremist situations or, terrorism and things like that. But then who defines a terrorist? Who defines an extremist? And this is where the slope gets too slippery to walk. Like, I mean, let's face it, they just got done labeling moms, regular, everyday American mothers, as being domestic terrorists. They just did this, right? The military purge that they did a couple of years ago with this Bishop Garrison person who I did a video on back then, right? And that's where the whole patriot extremism comes in. So if you're wondering what could label you, so like Chase will tell you, well, it's only in the cases of extremism and things like that. Well, then what's extremism? Right? So here, this is extremism, all right? As this is DARPA's definition of patriot, they created this term, all right? And the core belief of this extremist cult is that the ideology holds that the U.S. government has become corrupt, has overstepped its constitutional boundaries, and is no longer capable of protecting the people against foreign threats. This is what DARPA considers a terrorist. Now, this is what I consider the American team, right? And I always tell you there's no Republicans and Democrats, there's just Americans and Marxists. Well, this is the Americans. This is what the Americans believe right now. Okay, so basically we're all extremists. We're all extremists. Like, that's wild. So really, under that definition, Chase could give up the records of like more than half of its customers. Matter of fact, they're obligated to give up the records of more than half their customers to protect themselves from severe punishment from that creepy organization I can never remember the name of. and it's just, when we look at this, right, if that's, I mean, here's one, and I pulled it up by accident a moment ago. This is the symbols, the extremist symbols that they consider extreme, right? Now, notice that there are extremist symbols mixed in here, right? You got swastikas and stuff. But then look right here, right? The come and take it on the left side. Come and take it is, that's referring to our constitutional rights. That is referring to our Second Amendment rights. But according to DARPA, that's an extremist position right now. That's what we've devolved into. According to DARPA, that's an extremist position right now. I mean, that's wild. That's just wild. And apparently that somehow gives them justification to give out all of our banking information now. Like the two are somehow freaking related. Hell no. Hell no. Danny over on Facebook. I think AI has overlaid the broadcast here. Soon they will hijack whole broadcasts and use CGI. We won't know what's real and what's not. I don't know. Are you talking about my broadcast? Is it not coming out right, or are you just saying in general that they're going to take over the whole set? Because that might be the case. That might be the case. You know, there's going to come a point where AI can recreate my video better. I don't know about better, but they can recreate it and make me say whatever they want. They already did it to Joe Rogan. Hold on, I want to just hear myself. Yeah, I'm actually seeing a little lag as well. So I'm going to have to get with these people and reach out to them directly and figure out what the hell's going on with this, because it's driving me a little nuts. And and there's not a lot that you can tweak and edit and do. Like, it's such a simplistic software that I got to figure out what the overriding issue is here, because it's a problem. Is a problem. You know, maybe if I change the mic input. Hello, testing. All right, maybe that'll work better. We'll see. Let me know if that synced things up. I'll just switch the mic output. We'll see how that goes. But I also wanted to here. Let me know if that synced things up. Yeah. All right. I don't know. I don't want to get too into this. I'm going to go ahead and roll the way I've been. So, when it comes down to it, the bottom line is we have to start to take action. All right. We have to start to make a move. We have to start to, directly define, how we want this country to look. And I think the vast majority of us are in cahoots. The vast majority of us are working towards the same goal. The vast majority of us believe, even just the topics for convention, term limits, fiscal restraints, and government overreach. Even there are 75% of Democrats who do not oppose that. So, of Democrat voters, right? And I mean, like I always say, no Democrats, no Republicans, Americans. They're only Americans and Marxists. Look at the success that Kennedy's having now in his presidential run. There is a whole block of Democrats that are going to cling to that guy. A whole block. And in the end, those are Democrats. Those are Democrat voters who will easily cling to a convention of states. Those are Democrat voters that will easily sign on for a convention of states, because those are the Democrat voters who also think that there's only two sexes, there are only two genders. And they also believe that men should not be playing women's sports. And they also believe, like, they didn't follow the left off the rails. And they're disenfranchised now. Trump's too polarizing for them to cling to. But in the end, they're looking for somewhere to hang their hat. They don't want to be stuck voting for the AOCs and these weird people. And these are the people that I'm trying to appeal to, the freedom of speech loving people, right? So I don't have to agree with them on every issue, but I agree. They need them to agree with me on these three. And most of them agree on the border issue as well. But you don't hear from them. You hear from bots on social media. You hear from, mainstream media talking about, refusing to acknowledge that an illegal immigrant is here illegally, just calling them migrants, as if like we've always had migrants, like insane. But there's a lot of Democrats who did not go off the rails with that, who did not join the ranks of these people. And so those Democrats my attitude is come to Jamaica, right? Come on in. because there's the stigma. There's more in common right now between actual classic liberals and what today's conservatives are about. There are more things out there right now because the left has gone so bizarre. There are enough things that we can combine on and get together on, and they're big issues. They're big issues. And these are issues that we need to attack. Now, I'm not saying let's have a kumbaya moment, right? Because I'll be pro-life to the day I die. There are things I'm not saying, let's meet in the middle. I don't think we have to meet in the middle. I think on these issues, we're all in the same place. But we're all being gaslit to believe that there are 50% of the population out there who believe men should play in women's sports. And that men can have babies. Like, it's not 50% of the population. It's not even close. It's not even in the stratosphere of 50% of the population. It's in 100% of mainstream media and a good 80% of our universities. And just because they're holding megaphones doesn't make it okay. And so I want to get onto that other topic of that I went over, that I did the video on. Again, I'm not 100% sure how this video quality is coming through right now. I'm hoping it's okay. If it's not, I apologize. I will get this corrected somehow. I'm not a super expert, so I kind of need them to figure out what's going on, and I'm not getting that. So, but I will get it together. This started like a week ago, and I have not been able to. I've tried different software. I've tried everything. It's driving me insane. But I want to touch upon the ATF again, and again, another situation that can easily be rectified by the calling of a convention of states, and one where, for those of you who didn't see it, let me pull this up. So for those of you who didn't see it, okay, or don't know, you didn't see the last video, the ATF is going door to door, literally confiscating people's firearms over what's called an FRT, which is a forced reset trigger, which basically turns an AR, and there's a couple other models that it'll turn them into basically what would be a machine gun. It gives them rapid fire capabilities by forcing the trigger to reset back and forth really quickly. Now, and I showed an example of the difference between the two, and they do look very similar in the way that they fire. However, there is a definition of what a machine gun is that was written by Congress. And the FRT trigger mechanism does not fit that definition. The trigger mechanism, or the definition, I should say, clearly states that the requirement is that one single pull of the trigger needs to generate the rapid fire. And that is not what happens with an FRT trigger. They're also called rare breed triggers. So, and the man does the demonstration where he shows you, like, slows it down so you can see with the FRT that his finger is moving, however quickly it's moving, and the trigger is resetting, and it is one pull for one bullet. Now, that's a situation that could have been rectified by Congress by just saying, Congress could sit down and say, all right, you know what? We're going to change the language. We'll vote on it, and that'll be that. Then it would be legal. But what happened is the ATF decided, no, we're just going to reinterpret that law. Not only are we going to overstep by reinterpreting it, but we're going to go ahead and start to go retro and start confiscating weaponry from law-abiding citizens who purchased perfectly legal equipment. And so they came across this one gentleman who basically took him to school, and I want to show you.
Yeah, I own the company Moonlight Industries.
Okay. Oh, really?
So we make like low visibility.
Oh, really?
We specialize in right now we have a contract with SEAL Team 6, actually. Okay. We make their low visibility MP7 rigs.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Cool. So were you expecting us?
Well, it didn't surprise me when I saw a guy in a plate carrier showing up. So got the Ultima OTBs on. So.
Yeah, no. So the reason why we're here is because I don't know. I'm sure you're aware that just recently the ATF classified the FRTs, the force reset triggers, as machine guns. So we are aware that you may have purchased some of these FRTs.
Okay.
So now we are having the whole agency is basically reaching out to these purchasers.
That's incredible.
And we have pick them up. You know, they're
Okay.
illegal. So
I won't be answering any questions today. I don't have any comments on this subject. I won't be giving you anything.
okay, so you
Are you refusing to give us the trigger?
I'm not refusing anything. I won't be answering any questions.
okay. But okay, so we are aware that you did purchase FRTs. Again, you wouldn't be in trouble if you just give those up to us, or
Okay.
if you sold them, you can tell me you sold them.
Sure.
You know,
Okay.
and you're not going to be in trouble for that.
I understand.
So we're just here, honestly, like just to pick them up.
Sure. Sure. It's a bigger conversation than what you're having right now. You know, you decide as you go the rules, right?
Again, that's not something I decided.
It's not. I know. You guys are just here. You guys are just here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all.
I understand.
I don't want to be here any more than you want me to
Sure.
be here.
The problem is you are the people who go and knock on the doors, right? So when they make new laws and you break them, or you go against the citizens, because they've spoken what they buy and what they do, the citizens are speaking, but the government is making their decisions on what they think. They're not being servants to the citizens, right?
And all we're saying is, you know, like, I mean, we, like you said, you know, we just here, we are the ones that just come and knock on the door. We just
Sure.
enforce the laws. We don't make the laws. So
Sure, I
you
understand.
know, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like I said, you're not in trouble. I mean,
No,
you
and I
buy
understand
them,
that.
You know.
No, I didn't do anything wrong. Exactly. That's
So-
yeah. I love good law-abiding cops who are good people, who are doing what they do, and I understand you have families to feed. You're just doing what you're told, so you don't get fired from your job. But there is a problem that exists, and at some point you have to make your decision on which side of the team you're on.
And that's where I'll stop it. Is because that was the point. That's the point I was waiting for. At some point, you've got to make a decision as to what side of the team you're on. And this goes for the feds, right? The Durahm report just came out. The mainstream media is acting like it's a nothing burger. It is not a nothing burger. There has to come some point of critical mass where these agencies just start getting held accountable. And the FBI is an agency we can shut down tomorrow and nobody would notice. Okay, nobody would notice. You know who would notice? Conservatives that are being attacked and hounded, and as this organization continually is utilized as a weapon. And for a while in the beginning, I was saying to myself, you know what? It's only the leadership at the FBI. It's not. I don't want to pinpoint the thousands of agents that are out there, etc. That's what I said. But that's no longer true. Like, let's just take a look at this for a second. All right, because it wasn't Comey and the rest of these doo-doo-doos who stormed these people's houses while they were asleep with their wife and kid with battering rams and flashbangs, right? That wasn't Comey. So that was regular field agents who were perfectly okay, completely harassing American citizens. Like overkill beyond belief. There's a guy, there was like an 8-year-old girl in the house, and the wife wasn't even there for one of them. They show up with a battering ram, with a turret, and like 30 SWAT people throwing flashbangs, breaking his door down, when the entire thing could have been handled by knocking on the door and saying, we need to take you into custody, and the guy would have came. There was no reason to think he was a threat. There was no reason to think that he was armed. There was none of that. So somehow those FBI agents at these multiple raids that have happened, okay, and I've documented all this, and it's been documented elsewhere as well. You should check out Capital Punishment. It's an online documentary with a ton of quality footage that demonstrates this from the people's home security cams and stuff, where you see the battering rams coming down the street and whatever. Like it's wild. Well, these agents were okay. These agents got these orders, and none of them said, "You know what? I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not doing this. There's no way I'm taking all this gear down to scare the crap out of a 12-year-old girl and her father." Because the reason that those displays happen is to scare everybody else in the neighborhood. It's a classic communist tactic. And at some point, if you're working for the FBI, if you don't know that and you're in the FBI, shame on you. But the fact of the matter is, even if you don't know it's a communist tactic, you still have to see that that is unconstitutional. That is wrong. Even if you wanted to make the argument that it was constitutional, it's wrong. It's blatantly wrong. And you're allowing yourself to be used as the muscle for a Marxist organization. So I'm losing sympathy for them. And the same thing with the ATF right now. Even though I could tell that the two people in that video were not, that they were legit, like they didn't want to be there. They didn't want to go through that. They didn't want to be the ones that have to knock. I mean, that girl, how many times that woman was, well, you see, they kind of want us to take them, so we just have to take them. And it's like, no, I'm not giving it to you. And in the end, she didn't. It was really a master class in civics for her because she had she was just. You could tell by the look in her face, it was the first time she was really thinking this thing through. And I wonder if that's the case for so many of them, that they just assume that they're on the side of righteousness and that they don't realize that they're being turned into a stormtrooper. Like it's, she kept saying, I don't make the laws. But in her head, you could tell she was thinking, I don't make the laws. It's the ATF that's asking me to do this. And he had to correct her, ATF doesn't make the laws. ATF doesn't make law. And there's one part, I don't know if I left it in there or if I clipped it early, but she turns around and she says, yeah, well, just so you know, if you don't comply, that if you should get caught with these FRT triggers in possession of them in the future, you will be breaking the law. And that's where he stopped her and was like, no, I won't be breaking the law because nobody made a law like that. And that's where the civics class began. And she did not know how to respond. And I don't have patience for this now. Leslie, how are you today on Facebook? This is the fourth time I've seen this today. Conservative media is doing a good job of putting this out. My question is, how do they know who's purchasing these? So as far as that's concerned, the company that this probably, you're right, is another issue. That the company that was selling them has now had a cease and desist order to produce and sell. So there's a court battle going on about it. They're not allowed to sell anymore. My assumption is that they're overstepping again and going into their sales records to find out who exactly purchased them. That's the only way that they could know, right? So that's an excellent point, Leslie, is who's purchasing them, right? And this is the kind of thing where, it always brings me back to this, right? It always brings me back. Because in the end, all of these stories, I hate talking about problems without continually slamming home the solution. Because we have a solution. We don't have to play defense. Sorry. We don't have to play defense all the time. It doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to live in a world where we're constantly seeing stories like this and getting angry. We could live in a world where the deep state, which would be taken apart in effect, at least largely taken apart with the result of a convention. Certainly the regulatory pieces of it would be dismembered. But in the end, the mere threat now of being able, and this is what I always say is the most important thing. It's not even the topics, because that's just for this convention. But we get the process done and through, and now it's solidified, and there's no more scare tactics that the Soros groups and that JBS can use to try and scare people out of their constitutional power. Once they're off the table, now the process is easy. Now state legislatures understand their power. Now we can go ahead and turn around, no matter what gets passed, what gets ratified. We can now turn around and say, you know what? Hey, government, I don't like what's going on the border. I think you better fix that. And the government's going to be like, sure, we're going to get on it, and then do nothing. And then one state's going to pass a petition. Second state's going to sign the petition, going to pass the resolution. Third state, fourth state, fifth state. And the government's going to be like, all right, calm down. We'll get there. Like, we won't even have to call that convention at that point, because the hammer will already have been dropped. And as you know, all the dinosaurs are leaving because term limits passed, right? And is now a solid part of the Constitution. As the dinosaurs are on their way out, all the newbies will be in there going, all right, look, what do you guys want? Because we ain't trying to get smacked around like you just smacked around the last group. Like that's what you're going to get. That's how the relationship is going to be between the people and the government once a convention goes through. Again, regardless if we only get a handful ratified and we can't get them all ratified, that would suck. But you know what? It's the point, right? And this is what Scalia said, right? Scalia, who was like, he just wanted to see it get done once. He just wants to see. Scalia was saying he didn't even care what it got done on, what got passed so much. He's like, as long as it's reasonable. He's like, he just wanted to see it get done so that the procedure can be demonstrated and that all the nonsense and all the noise can go away. So Danny Mayer on Facebook says, we've been using digital currency and we do, for a while now, all is tracked. Yeah, yes and no. And I see you over there, Article 5 on Rumble's chat. He said, sick him, George. So Danny, to your comment, yes, we're using digital currency, but no, we're not using anything remotely like CBDC. Like CBDC, the central bank digital currency that they're setting the stage for and building the infrastructure for. FedNow is not, a lot of people got their stuff flagged as false because they misrepresented what FedNow is, but they were right, but they misworded it and misunderstood it. And so they gave these bullshit fact checkers an avenue to freaking say something. What FedNow is, and it's coming out, set to come out in July. It's not introducing CBDC, but what it is doing is creating the infrastructure. So the infrastructure, when they want to make the conversion, FedNow will be the infrastructure that they use. There's no doubt about that. It's too clear to see. And what FedNow is, if you're not aware, is it's essentially Zelle and Venmo on steroids. And eventually the process will eliminate banks. So my take on it is the banks will be eliminated from the process altogether at some point, not now. When it rolls out now, it will go from your institution through the Fed and then to you, from you, the Fed, the institution. But like the transactions are not just, unlike Zelle and Venmo, the transactions are not just from me to you and you to grandma. The transactions are at every business everywhere. So businesses now, all right, would be incentivized heavily to accept this form of payment. And I would not be shocked if there came a point where they were incentivized so heavily to almost be forced to use that form of payment, and or giving such incentive that they just decided they're going to force everybody to use it. And then it'll be on us to get away from it. But even then, it wouldn't be CBDC yet. Your money would still not be programmable. Okay? They wouldn't be able to turn off your money, turn on your money, that sort of thing. Right? Even with Chase shutting down these accounts, they can't turn off their money. They've got to give them cashier's checks with their money. They can't just keep it. But in the end, with this FedNow stuff, like once that instant infrastructure is set up and transactions start going through the Fed, now the Fed has a record of all these transactions. Yeah, that opens up, the infrastructure to easily switch over when ready to CBDC. So I hope that cleared it up a little bit. So, I mean, we use a card and don't see cash until we want. Yeah, right. And yeah, I understand what you meant, Danny. I only clarified that from the standpoint of CBDC, but I understand what you meant. Like you're saying, like we already cash. I use my phone to pay for most stuff. I don't even use the card anymore. I use my phone. I don't mind digital transactions. And frankly, I'm not under the illusion that money in general isn't eventually going to go digital in some form or another anyway. I just want to see it go in a crypto form that is not traceable. So it is analogous to cash. Like that's what I want to see. I want to see a more advanced version of blockchain, or even blockchain for now, like Bitcoin and things like that, technically it could be traced, but it's like trying to trace cash. There's a ton of investigative work that has to get done. You really gotta follow a trail to try and find out which one of the hundreds of thousands of computers that could have processed that did. And so it's hard enough that there's no way they're gonna be able to just look at every transaction out there. There's no way. Like if there's a criminal that they've identified and they need to look up his transaction specifically and they want to invest the resources to do it, again, it's just like trying to follow the money with a cash trail. So it's as close right now as we have technologically to, and it runs on scarcity. So, its value, you can't just print more Bitcoin like they will do with CBDC. Like Bitcoin has a finite number. It's mined. These computers are out there mining it organically by running through these algorithms and questions. So there's only a certain amount of Bitcoin that's going to be out there, which makes it analogous to gold. Okay. Which makes it analogous to gold. So the only difference with Bitcoin is no one is accepting it as a currency. They were about to, and then the central banks all stepped in and were like, no. And now you can see the full frontal assault on cryptocurrency as they start taking out one bank after another, all crypto banks. That's not a coincidence. They're paving the way right now for CBDC. But what I would tell you is that you should look at this from another perspective, because in the end, these people are afraid right now. All right. And when I say these people, if you're new to the show and you don't watch me often, I really mean the CCP. All right. Because they're at the main head. It's not the Rothschilds or any of that. It's the CCP. Okay. And the fact the Rothschilds have a ton of power, I get it. But the CCP could care less about the Rothschilds. And the Rothschilds don't have an army. So trust me when I tell you, this has been going on for 70 years now. They planned it for 100 years, okay? They literally have been planning this since 1949 when the CCP took over China nationalists. And they've been weak for most of that ride, but the Soviets were carrying them for most of that ride as far as turning over America, as far as the ideological subversion in America. The Soviets were at it for that period of time. And when the Soviets fell, CCP, according to their mantra, which is bide your time, hide your strength. Okay, that's what they did for those decades while they pretended to like us and pretended to open their doors to us or open an olive branch, got themselves in the World Economic Organization at the whole nine, and then slowly began to grow. But everything they've grown is parasite-like, so they can be taken down easy. But anyway, that's who our problem is, folks. That's who our problem is. So it's important, I think, for people to understand. It's not the WEF. The WEF is creepy, but the WEF is a part of the UN, which frankly is poisoned by the CCP. And you're going to have to show me an immense amount of evidence to prove any different. Because I don't know of the UN organization that has not already taken a knee to the CCP. The WHO was literally willing to come out and lie about a virus being transmissible to humans, knowing that it was. And we're literally able, the CCP was actually able to get them to broadcast to the world. No, it wasn't. So that virus could then spread. If that's not having control, if you haven't sold your soul at that point, please explain to me what selling your soul is then. Like these Klaus Duteroos and the rest of them, these are all shiny toys. Go look at him. Look at Klaus. They had me going. I was putting out videos on Klaus like nobody's business. Look at this guy. He's got the accent and everything, this and that. I'm like, in the end, though, Klaus is just another tool. And if you look at him, he really is a tool. What is he, a professor? A professor has this kind of power? No, they literally looked at that guy and were like, here's our villain. Here's our villain, folks. Let's make him feel super important. They caught on to him back in the 70s. This guy is really on a mission. He really wants to be a big deal. Let's make him feel like a big deal. Let's make him feel really important. He's going to be our boogeyman. And there he was, spacesuit and all, with his little freaking space costume he wears, out there being the 80s villain. So, like, you know, thank you for sharing your wisdom. Oh, thank you, Danny. Yeah, I appreciate that. Look, it's we're all sharing wisdom here, right? Like, this is that's actually the reason why we initially named this the think tank when Jack and I put it together, because we really were counting on the live events to really share information. You know, a lot of you folks are messaging me with different stuff just to get my take on stuff, and I'm getting stuff from you where you'll turn me on to something that I didn't even know was going on, because there's just so much batshit crazy stuff going on in the world today that, you know, keeping up with all of it is and still trying to have a life is kind of impossible, right? Unless, you know, you're Tucker and you've got a team of, you know, you got teams of people that could go out and do stuff, right? But for the average Joe like us, you know, it's time consuming to get yourself into this kind of flow where, like, you can keep track of all these different things going on. Even this Chase story, like, I didn't even know about this. My brother sent this to me, and it was some guy that was just reading a Business Insider article, but, like, just knowing that was a thing, that 19 states have actually called now for Chase to be investigated. Okay, the attorney generals of 19, they're all Republican states, of course, because there are no California couldn't care. Chase ain't doing it to anybody there, right? But they're all Republican states. But at the same time, there's 19 attorney generals who are calling for this investigation. So, you know, it's real, right? And I didn't know about it. My brother flipped it to me. I saw it. Right. And all the guy did was read the article to you. So that wasn't helping me much. So then I went and started looking into it. Then I realized, wow, this is something that's been going on, you know, and it takes you down the rabbit hole you go. Right. Next thing you know, you're realizing, wow, all right. So there are shareholders now coming up against this who are legitimizing it. And, you know, there's a lot going on with this. So then it became something that was worth talking to you folks about. Right. Then it became something that was like, you know, as these things happen, right? Because when I see a story like that, the first thing that occurs to me is overreach, right? It's overreach, because that's of the three things, right? I think fiscal restraints are huge. I think term limits are a big deal as well. But government overreach is that's the change you're really going to feel, followed closely by fiscal restraints. But where these government regulatory agencies just lose their power, as they've been given over the decades and decades and decades by the Supreme Court, in small decision after small decision that has basically allowed Congress to outsource its duties. There's only, because the courts did that, because the courts legitimized that stuff, the only way we could fix this is through amendment. That's it. That's the only option. Like, the court is not the final word in the United States, in this great American experiment, in this wonderful constitutional republic. The Supreme Court is not the final word. We, the people, are. Because if we don't like something that the Supreme Court does, we can amend the Constitution to change it without help from the federal government, without help from the courts, without any of it. This constitutional republic is the most unique thing that has ever been created. When I listen to these dingbats and doodadoos tell me about every empire falls, blah, 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 blah. There's never been, ever, in the history of this world, a constitutional republic anywhere close to the United States of America. There are so many checks. These Marxists have been coming after us for 70 years, and they have not been able to. They made some of our generations batshit crazy, but they ain't able to take our freedoms. They could squash the free speech on individual private company platforms, but they can't squash free speech. And this is the problem. They've never, of all the countries that they've taken that have fallen to Marxism and decayed into disgust, all of them allowed for complete control of the media, complete control of the messaging, complete control of propaganda. They're trying, but the fact is nobody's watching. They've taken over all these media networks, and now nobody watches. Now, in China, you can't do it. In China, you take it over, there's nothing else to watch. But here, it's not that way. Here, we can absolutely find other stuff to watch. And that's the beauty That's the beauty of the whole Constitution. That's the beauty of this republic. I do not believe this republic will fall. Okay, I don't. Because I think eventually we're going to get this. I don't know what event has to happen that like, to me, enough events have already happened to make this convention an obvious situation. But apparently there are other people, right, who are not quite convinced. They either don't know, and that's usually the case, is they don't know, which is what I'm trying to do, is to educate people. And by the way, if there's ever a question about Article 5, how it works, anything, I don't care how simple the question is. If it's the first time you've ever heard of it, what is this thing? Whatever it is, you just hit me up in the comments, and I will absolutely address it here on the air any Wednesday night. Any Wednesday night. So Danny says we're Second Amendment away from the communism. Yeah, we're not. We're a convention away. It's a convention that's going to separate us from our demise, and it's just a matter of when we call it. That's really all it is. So why are there such a delay in arrest of criminal politicians? It's not a delay. They're not going to arrest them. These organizations are corrupt. And the Durahm report just came out and said as much. And of course, they're going to look all the media immediately come out like there's a nothing burger. Like if you know what the media is going to say before they say it, it's not media anymore. Like when I hear the media speak, and this includes Hannity and these conservative ones too. All right, Tucker is not in that category. Tucker went off the rails a long time ago as far as following their message. He went down the path of truth a long time ago. That's why I always said his days were limited. I was not shocked. I don't think he was either that it ended. I think he knows. I'm sure there was an element of it, like, wow, they actually did it, but there's no way he didn't know that when he started preaching truth that he was gone. But when you look at the rest of these guys, like Hannity's always going to give you what the Republican message is. That's what he's going to give you. He's not gonna challenge it. He's gonna give you what the Republican message is. A perfect example was when he sold his soul to beat up on those two Freedom Caucus members for doing the right thing, because the Republican base, the Republican establishment, didn't want that done. They just wanted McCarthy in. We don't want to show lack of unity. Blah blah blah. If you don't want to show a lack of unity, then start doing your job. Right, but Hannity was all in. He was all in for McCarthy. Starts belittling this congresswoman. That's what you're getting from them. Okay, that's what you're getting from them. There are rare birds like Tucker out there that still exist, and now none exist. Now there are none. Right? I mean, you can say gut-filled, I guess, but he's a comedian. So let's call it what it is. Right? He's the only one that survived the rating slashing. Everybody else took a bath. But that's the fact. The fact of the matter is all of the media is owned. No one's watching the media. There are options. There's this channel. There's Beningo on Run. There's bigger ones, right? Like, with my small channel or whatever, even with Facebook and the 16,000 followers, compared to these, compared to these juggernauts, this is peanuts right now, right? But it doesn't matter to me, because if every one person I educate in any way from a civic standpoint is a win for me. It made it worth sitting down and having the conversation, putting out the video, doing whatever it had to be. I mean, the reaction to the Stop Calling It a Democracy video was phenomenal. And that kind of stuff fires me up. But nothing's going to fire me up more than seeing people starting to sign the petition in mass. I think they just got close to over 100,000 people. They're approaching 100,000 people on the petition in Pennsylvania. There's a lot of good stuff going on. And we still have states that are about to cross the finish line. Like, we still have states this year that are about to cross the finish line and add to the collective. So, all right, let me... So lastly, I just wanted to see if because we're past the hour now, but I didn't get to read the whole Durahm report, so I don't want to pretend that I did. It's 300 pages long. I'd like to read it before I start seriously commentating on it. I listened to some stuff from Glenn Beck, who, I don't know in what he was saying that he fully read it either, but he was picking out some certain points about it and pointing out how the media's reaction to it. And I'm curious to know how the viewers see it, and what you guys, just leave in the comments, whether it's Rumble or the other platforms, leave in the comments, what your reaction was to the Durham reports. To me, I kind of knew it was going to be like that, right? I think most of us did in that sense. But I think the detail from what I've seen so far, the detail that he goes into, and I was just scrolling through the table of contents this morning, and I can tell you the level of detail that he appears to go into is somewhat fascinating. Like for a wonky dude like me, it's probably going to be an interesting read. And it baffles me that there's so much blatant information, so blatant that it's beyond any, there's so much. It's no different than the Hunter Biden laptop situation. And what I'm referring to is the dossier situation and that whole Mueller investigation and the whole nine. It is so obvious what went down. And it's now documented. It's not even like we're just going by the fact, it's not even like that. It's like, here's the information. Here's the information, all paperwork. Here are the documents showing that the dossier was complete garbage. Here are the documents showing that the FBI actually went and got a search warrant, knowing that they were doing so illegally, and that search warrant got put forth, and they went and executed it, and nobody cares. How does that even happen? If you shut down, I'm telling you, we could shut down the FBI, we could shut down the ATF, we could shut down DARPA, shut down the CIA or the NSA, probably the NSA. Leave one organization that's left only for intelligence gathering. No military, no ops, no on-the-ground stuff, unless it has to do with bugging and things like that. That's it. The rest of them can go. There's no crime. If you kill someone, does it need to be a federal crime? What does that even mean? What, a state crime's not serious? It's getting brought up on they always talk about that's a federal offense. Well, what the hell does that mean? Why is a state offense not enough? These agencies are not necessary. There's no reason to have a federal body policing states. There's no reason for that. It's overkill. And it was allowed to go for way too long. And all they've done since their entire history is spy on people, put people on lists, just harass the crap out of American citizens. And now it's so out of control that they're influencing election results. It's just madness. But yet here we are. And then you get a guy like Durham who kept his mouth shut the entire freaking time, which he should do. Unlike Mueller, where all this stuff just leaks here, leaks there, leaks here, leaks there. Durham actually went in there with some integrity and was like, all right, I'm not, we'll talk about this when it's done. And now he's released it, and immediately the lapdogs have to run out and make sure nobody wants to read it. Well, I'm going to read it, at least a chunk of it, because it's important. It's important. And if there's anything big that I find in it, I will absolutely share that. If there's more to it than just the generic, what we think it is, I will absolutely share that. But the fact of the matter is, the FBI is another. I mean, the list of government overreach examples is so long. In my head, by the time this convention actually gets called, I'm going to have so many freaking things I want to close. I mean, already off the top of my head, Department of Education, shut it down. Useless organizations save us billions. Right? OSHA. The hell do we need OSHA for? Why can work safety not be handled on a state level? Why is it necessary to handle that on a federal level? There's no need for that. There's just no need for that. The EPA. How long? Great job in the beginning, right? They cleaned up a lot of stuff, the EPA initially, and now they just harass citizens and have joined this climate cult where they've just lost their damn mind. But their power that they have to go and like take people's land and fine them with these immense like $5,000 a day until you like stop it. That's all nonsense. That all needs to end. They pull the teeth out of that bad boy. They can still consult the Congress and tell them whatever it is, what exact year their model has us all going to doom now. They could do all that. But as far as like, as far as having the teeth to go out on their own and take somebody out and like friggin' jail people and fine, enough, done, get out, right? So that's 3 agencies, right? ATF gone. Get rid of the ATF. No, absolutely no need for the ATF. FBI, same thing, gone. See you later. Not necessary. Not necessary. DARPA. Why do we need DARPA, the CIA, Homeland Security, and NSA, and the FBI? What is the frickin' point? They are all designed to do the same thing. But this is how government works. Most of those gone. As a matter of fact, all of them gone. Recreate a new agency based on intelligence gathering only. Foreign intelligence gathering only. That'll be specific. They'll be like, hey, we did it. So wish the convention could be next week. Yeah, that's a little too much to ask, but yeah. I mean, in the end, look, if we could pull off the 4 that we think we can get this year, that would put us at 23? That'll put us at 23 states. All right, so we'll have 11 left. But here's the thing. As these Marxists continue their march, all right, you can see that they're trying to get as much done before 2024, which is encouraging for those who think that elections are fixed and this and that, because in the end, they wouldn't be attacking Trump the way they are. They wouldn't be, pushing all this stuff forward in short order the way they are if they thought they had the election handled. So in that sense, it does breed some hope. So my retirement account 401k was at JP Morgan, no choice at work. Yeah. And that's, look, people are going to be, this is not Bud Light, right? So it's not like, and that's what I was saying when Bud Light happened. It's like, it was so easy to just boycott Bud Light that like so easy that it was baffling. Like, I think a lot of people realized for the first time that there's better beer at the same price point out there. They've just been drinking it because they've been drinking it. This is like whatever. And then they stopped and started tasting other stuff. It was like, oh, this is better anyway. Like, that was just the easiest softball. Getting out, if you're entwined with a bank, it like through another entity like work and things like that. And thanks for the comment contact. But yeah, it says that was 6 years ago. So yeah, and that's over on YouTube. So nice to see YouTube. Somebody found us, but you usually find us though. I do see you out there. So I appreciate your jumping on as well. I missed one in here. So he said, as soon as I could have to return it, I moved it all to another company. You have no association with JP Morgan at all. Oh, okay. So you were able to get out of that. So that's good. That's good. And look, I want to reiterate, what the other gentleman was saying, the investment firm guy, what he was saying. There is a possibility that this isn't really a JP Morgan, staged kind of thing, like intentional thing. It's very possible that this is a regional thing. JP Morgan is an enormous, complicated company with tons of freaking infrastructure, and that there are some regional people who just going off the rails. That is entirely possible. I have seen those things happen. It would make no sense. I mean, especially now, it just doesn't make any sense for them as a company to take that position. But what was concerning is that when they brought that resolution up, that they opposed it. That was concerning, because you would think that if the company as a whole was against such a thing, or felt like they were innocent, I should say, that they would not be in opposition. They'd be like, yes, we want to investigate this. Yes, we absolutely want our shareholders to know that we are not discriminating on customers based on politics. But they didn't. They said no, and the SEC had to force that resolution to. So like that kind of stuff puts them in a bed. Like certainly is not good optics. Now, if there may be something dirty that they've already discovered in an investigation that they don't want to open the door to, or would rather settle quietly with their investors, right? But there certainly should be some people whacked over this. Some people need to hit the dumpster over this one, right? The termination dumpster, right? Because in the end, keeping your job when it's clear that you've made bad decisions in closing accounts, you had one job, right? You had one job. So in that sense, there are some people that need to lose their jobs, right? And just whack them, get them out of there, put in new people, and that's it. Move on. It would be very concerning if the people who made those bad decisions stay on. If I'm a shareholder, which I am not, although maybe I am. So my 401k is with Fidelity. I don't know if they invest in JP Morgan as a stock. I don't believe so. It's mostly the funds are like intercompany and stuff. So I don't know, but that stuff's so complicated. Half the population doesn't even know who they're investing in, which I guess is a problem too, right? So can't we just call a convention of states and set a date, show up, or you're no longer a party of issue? Yeah, no, you can't. But they do mock conventions and stuff. But in the end, we've got to have 34 states on board. So the key here, and for those that are new to the concept, the key here to Article 5 is that it's making the point that our constitutional republic is not top down. That's not how they haven't taught civics in so long, my generation included, that a lot of people don't really get this fact. Is that the president is not. How often do you hear the president be called the most powerful leader in the free world? It's not really true. The state legislature is not even the most powerful in the country. The state legislatures wield the most power under our republic. Period. It's second to no one. It's not Congress. You got to remember, right? You got to remember, to put it in perspective, that the federal government is the child of the states, right? The states gave birth to the federal government. And while we've let that child run around the house, play ball in the house, and break mom's vase with the ball and still didn't stop it, it's still a child and still needs to be smacked and spanked and put in line, stood in the corner with the dunce hat, whatever your method of punishment may be. But it still needs to be disciplined. And Article 5 is indeed the method of discipline specifically written into the Constitution for this purpose. This is why it is there. This is the entire reason. There's no other reason to have a second clause to Article 5. Because if it wasn't to restrict the power of the federal government, Congress would sign on, and we wouldn't need to have a convention. Mason makes it clear in Madison's notes from the convention, from the original constitutional convention, as opposed to a convention for amendments. He makes it clear in his notes that that's the purpose of this. Would we be so silly as to believe that Congress would would propose amendments that would restrict its own authority and power? Of course not. And so, was it neat calm, right? It says in the notes, which means no vote necessary. It just passed. As far as I know, there might be a scholar out there who can correct me. As far as I know, that's the only thing that passed without a vote being necessary, that everybody just agreed. Because it was like an aha moment. You're right. There has to be a method for the states unyielded to be able to put a check on the federal government in case the whole damn thing goes rogue, which is exactly where we're at. which is why this is exactly what has to happen. And any organization that tells you otherwise, that tells you that this is chaos, this is the founders, the founders ran away with it. Anyone who tells you all that garbage is either confused, severely misled, or intentionally lying to you. It's one of those three things. Because once you start reading, and I encourage people, go listen to the JBS do stuff. Listen to it. Listen to how they tell you the delegates are going to gain these mystical powers, and they can do all kinds of things, and nobody can stop them. And oh, it's crazy. Like, listen to it all, and then go over to College University, watch some of the videos I've done, earlier on, and you'll see both sides of the argument, and you'll see who's using founders' quotes out of context and who's using them in context. You'll see like what the founders' intentions were and what they weren't. They got this one dude to do offered $10,000 for anybody who could show that the founders were fully aware or fully believed that they were within their commissions to do what they did. $10,000 he offered, and then he got snapped over his knee by Kenneth Quinn on the YouTube channel All Things Article 5, and that was it. Now he just went on there ranting. I was trolling him for a little while in the comments, and that was it. Now he disappeared. That's also a really good channel. Kenneth Quinn on article. It's called All Things Article 5. It's on YouTube. Kenneth used to be a part of JBS, John Birch Society, and ended up like realizing how wrong they were on this issue, and then left, and then realized like just how wrong they are as an organization. And so he is in a unique position to explain to those who don't really get it and don't understand and look at them like they're some great conservative organization. They're a cult. They're a cult, and he's got great information there to explain it to you. So you should check that out. So Warren, how are you, sir? Over at Facebook says we need to boycott. What we need to boycott is all the food companies switching our products, using bugs and poisons that aren't allowed in other countries. They're attacking our food and water so bad. I feel that's why a lot of people can't wake up. It could be. I mean, there's definitely something to the food supply thing. Like I don't know, I don't even know how to go about digging into that from the standpoint of pesticides and things like that. So I'm not going to claim that but I have long said that, like, just from an observation standpoint, that like clearly there is something very different today with respect to, like, we're in a more advanced age of technology today than we have ever been medically. We can do more things medically than ever in the history of this world, yet we are sicker than we have ever been. There are new disorders coming out all the time. It seems like 1 out of 2 kids is born with autism. Like, there's just things happening that clearly have a root cause that is sweeping. That is like, and when I think of sweeping things like that, it leads me to believe things like food supply, water supply, like those sorts of things. So yeah, Warren, I'm definitely open to that concept, right? I mean, I just don't have a ton of, it's just an observational thing for me, right? It's just something that like when I look at how sick the nation gets and how even obesity and stuff, like, all right, so now, like in the very recent years, people have been sitting down more, they haven't been out as much and whatever. But like 2000s and stuff, obesity was still an issue, and people were not on their smartphones and not, and it was still an issue. So there's something going on. Like I know some people say fluoride, right? That fluoride is the big culprit, and I don't know, and I haven't researched that enough. And honestly, like, I'm always a little bit hesitant when I have to start researching medical studies, although a lot of them you can get the gist of what they're, but sometimes it takes you into the weeds. So I try to find reputable doctors and not the political science ones to try and get that information from. All right. So he says bread from the store really sucks now. Listen, I'm in California right now, and I'm from New York. So if you want to talk about bread sucking, like there's the drop off in bread quality from New York to California is immeasurable. It's immeasurable. I can't get a decent loaf of semolina out here to save my life. It's terrible. So I'm with you on that. The bread. Ugh. But we'll see. I mean, it also warrant on the boycott thing. Like, I'm not a huge boycott person. Like, even though like I just did all these pieces on Bud Light, everyone say, "Oh, why you want to boycott?" Like, my attitude is like, yeah, I guess you could say boycott that I choose where to spend my money. But I feel like that needs to be organic. Like, I feel like the Bud Light thing was organic. Like they didn't need a movement to do that. People just got the word out. Once people heard it, it was an easy decision. They stopped buying, and really are delivering a serious blow to Budweiser right now because their sales have never recovered. They're down 24% this week, 23% last week, 21% the week before. Like, it's getting worse as the brand becomes more toxic. Now they're talking about putting out a can with camouflage on. It's like anything they do at this point is toxic. I hate to say, I believe it's done. I don't want to hate to say. The beer might just have taken a beating where it's just going to become, a nothing beer. Like, it won't die totally, but they may just get rid of it altogether. I don't know. We'll see how bad the beating continues. I think there's enough disconnected people who don't even know what's going on to keep it going, at least to some degree. But that's that. So, all right, folks. So, I'm glad things were able to catch up again as far as the sound quality and all that. I will be working diligently to figure out. I may just wipe my whole system and just make sure it's not the system, but I don't imagine it is. There's only like 14% of my computer usage going on right now, even with the stream on 3 different networks, because it's all going through a web service. It's not going through software. So there's no reason for that type of thing to happen. But who knows, right? Maybe it's the Illuminati who think that, they think this Article 5 thing is catching on a little bit. They're getting a little worried. So they sent over a virus. All right, folks. Every Wednesday night, 5:30 p.m. Please, the Rumble link is in the description. So go ahead for everyone other than Rumble. Right now, the Rumble link is in the description. All of the news articles or videos, clips that I used from today will be available on the Rumble channel. So if you go to this video on the Rumble channel, which you have a link in your description, head over there. You can get the source stuff, like the DARPA documents that's from an older episode of ours. I have those on our website, so I link to that. Just scroll down further and you'll see them. A bunch of crazy DOD documents there. But the rest of the stuff as well, the New York Times article, etc., all that will be available at the Rumble channel. If and while you're there, please take a moment, subscribe to the Rumble channel. If you haven't noticed, that's where all my focus has been, even though I love my Facebook peeps to death, and I definitely have love for those who have subscribed on YouTube. I never know when they're going to kick me off, so I can't take them as a channel seriously. I stay on only for those 1,400 or so followers that are already there. As far as Rumble, and as far as the 16,000 on Facebook, love you guys. It's just Facebook never tells you when I'm going on. On the other hand, with Rumble, right now we've only been doing this for a couple months now, a few months that we've really been pushing Rumble. And as a result, we're up to like 622 or so followers. And of those 622, to give you an example, 622 followers on Rumble, and we get 300 views or so, anywhere from 150 to like 400 views, right? Usually in the 250 to 300 range with just 600 subscribers. On Facebook, I have 16,000 followers, but because of the shadow banning is so hard, the same video, all right, I may get, like, even right now, 16,000 followers on Facebook, but I've been on for an hour and a half, so I understand you're going to lose a lot of viewers, but there are still 11 people, 12, what is it? I'm seeing 13 people now on Rumble, and there are like 4 on Facebook. So with 16,000 followers as opposed to 600, right? So the whole goal for me is to get the message out, right? I will continue to broadcast on Facebook. I will continue to broadcast on YouTube as long as they will not throw me off. And I will continue to broadcast on Twitch for the live events as well. But Rumble is really where this is headed. Like, Rumble is really where Like all the serious journalists are going to Rumble now. They're doing like 15 minutes of their show on YouTube and then telling everybody they're out. You know, if you want to see the rest of this, you got to come to Rumble. So you really should go to Rumble anyway, because it's a great platform. But subscribe to us there, because I want to continue to run this experiment and see, you know, the difference between Rumble with the following. I can't really do it until the followings are similar. So we're trying to. I know these grow. You know, YouTubes and Rumbles grow slower than Facebook because it's not as shareable and interconnected the way Facebook is. But the goal right now is to just get to 1,000. That's the first goal. Right, we're at 1,400 on YouTube. It's been there for like 8 months since they started shadow banning me. So at least I want to get to 1,000 on Rumble, and I can start comparing apples to apples. Because YouTube, I might get 30 views a video, maybe. Like if it's a really good video with a really good thumbnail, 30 views. And it's too hard to do this without getting any love from the platform. So check it out there. I definitely appreciate it. Every Wednesday night, I will be on talking Article 5, talking events of the day. If you have any topics that you'd like to see talked about, shoot them over to me via message. If it's enticing enough and I go down that rabbit hole, it may end up being the next episode of Wednesday Night Live. So, and always comment. Click the like buttons, whatever platform you're working on. It helps me greatly. Click the like buttons. Even if you want to just comment and tell me where you're watching from, that's fine. That's fine. It's just the act of the comment that triggers the algorithm to help it get distributed more, you know, shadow ban or not. Like every little thing helps. So I appreciate that.